I want to put this book on your radar screen. It is Sub 4, Alan Webb and his quest for the fastest mile. Um, this book is it's a riveting account of Alan Webb, who is one of America's greatest track and field milers, one of our greatest runners. And it chronicles his up and down season at the University of Michigan as a freshman, a season that threatened to completely derail his entire what became a future Olympic and American record holder career. The book is written by Chris Lear, who is of the famed Running with Buffalo, so you know it's a good story. You know it's well written, and you know that it is written by someone who completely understands what it takes to run a mile fast and to run hard. At its core, the book follows Alan Webb. You go back to 2001 when he was a freshman at the University of Michigan. And at the time, he was on the top of the world. Earlier that year, he became the first American schoolboy to break Jim Ryan's mile record as in high school. He ran a 3:53 mile in 2001. He this is a record that had stood for the past 34 years, and people thought maybe it couldn't be broken. And so he was this rising star if you go back to 2001. And so then he began his freshman year at the University of Michigan. Outstanding fall cross-country season. Things are looking great. He gets injured and so has to sit out the indoor running season. And so the story picks up right about the time that the outdoor season starts. And this is when the world, and it's not just the university or even the NCAA, this is the whole world looking at Alan to see how fast he can go, how much better can he improve under a new coach at the University of Michigan compared to his old coach that he trained in under high school, and how good can he get. The challenge is that things aren't going smoothly for Alan. He, first and foremost, he's 18 years old. And so aside from just being a kid who has to adapt to running at a collegiate level, he's also doing all the other things you deal with when you're a freshman in college. And I can relate because Alan graduated in high school in 2001. I graduated in 2000. And so being in college at the same time that he was starting, I can think about going back to then, what it must have been like. I was, I had my hands full being away from the home for the first time and getting used to the intensive elements of academics and collegiate setting. And Alan had all those things, and he had the expectations of the world on how fast can he run for 4 laps around the track. And so this is what's going on for Alan at the time. And if that wasn't enough, he also has a lot of other background noise that are happening that Chris really picks up in the story. You have drama with his coach. Alan had been very successful under his high school coach, and now he's having to transition to a new college coach who has a whole new program. And with that, you have the competing dynamics of U.S. track and field and the collegiate system where, the collegiate coach is incentivized to put together 3 good teams a year: cross-country, indoor track and field, and outdoor track and field. And the coach needs to balance that and fielding a team with an individual athlete who's trying to run as fast as he can for the 1,500 meters or the mile. And so you have that conflict, and you have the conflict of it's a different system than Alan was used to running. You also have teammate conflict. The reality is that Alan had a injury for the indoor season, and some of his teammates did really well. And so you have this conflict of teammates that are running fast, and that's tough for a competitive guy, as it seems like Alan. And then you also have other teammates that Alan expected to be part of the workouts in this program that aren't there. And so you have this internal team drama as well. Then you also have this nagging thread of the story behind the scenes, which is the question is, does Alan go pro? And this is something that I thought was really interesting that I didn't know too much about is that side of the equation, which is, do you go pro or do you stay in college? And it's something we hear a lot about in basketball or football or other sports, but it involves the running world as well. And here's a guy who is 18, maybe 19 years old, and he's having to think about making a multi-million-dollar choice while he is balancing all these other elements and being in college for the first year. And Chris does an amazing job, I think, threading all this together. You get a story about running, for sure. You get a story that has captivating races culminating in the NCAA championship in 2001. You get all of that in this book. You get the hard workouts, you get the training, you see what it takes to run a mile this fast, which is just mind-blowing. That's in this book. But what you also get is all these other underlying storylines. You learn about more of the politics and the business of U.S. track and field. You learn about how hard it must be for these kids at such a young age to have so much stress and pressure placed upon them by both their university and broader organizations to run fast. And I think it helps put things in perspective when you watch these races. And then you also learn about just, these are humans. These are individual people with emotions who are worried about girls and friends and being liked. And yet we expect them to show up and run world-class performances. And just seeing how all of that has to get managed so that you can show up on the track and put together an amazing time, which eventually was good enough to go to the Olympics and to be an American record holder. So at the end of the day, it's a book I highly recommend. If you're a fan of running, obviously, but just a fan of just a great story of having to manage a lot, things that are successful and unsuccessful, and then being able to come out on top at the end of it. And I think Chris, no greater guy to write this book. He really does a good job capturing what it must be like to run a mile in these kids' shoes.